Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karvavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Ma Vidvisha Vahai Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So last week we talked about culture and the four ashrams, and really it is part of Bhaj Govindam. We will see how it will, relate to the book that we are going to study. But before we get into the book, a little about the author of the book, Jagat Guru Adi Shankaracharya. First of all, he is called Jagat Guru, which means the universal teacher. What happens if people don't accept him as a guru? Does he still remain a universal guru? Can that title still be meaningful? It is meaningful because his teachings are universal. They apply to all people in all places at all times. Whether one accepts or rejects uh, Jagat Guru Shankaracharya, his teachings will apply to all. Just as whether we accept or reject Newton, the laws of gravity will apply to us. I say I do not accept Newton, so I can jump from the 10th floor. I will suffer the consequences. So his teachings are universal, and that is why he is Jagat Guru. And a little about his life. He was born in the in centuries, no, 788, I believe, in Kaladi, a place in South India in the state of Kerala. His parents did not have children for a long time. His parents were Aryamba and Shivaguru, and they prayed to the Lord to have a son. And they had a dream that the Lord came to them and said that you can choose, you can have a child with a long life, but a very ordinary child, or a child with a very short life, but an exceptional, brilliant child. And they chose a child with a short life, but an exceptionally brilliant child. And then Shankaracharya was born to them. Now, when his father died at a young age, and his mother taught him a lot of the scriptures. By the age of 8, he had mastered the Vedas. By the age of 12, he knew the scriptures, all of them. He was an acharya, and he also went in search of a guru. And when he reached his guru, Acharya Govinda Gaudapada, he asked Shankaracharya to introduce himself. And at that time, he introduced himself with the Atma Shatakam, which many of us know about, that the 8 stanza composition, Chidananda Rupa Shivoham Shivoham. I am that conscious self uh, which we call Shivoham, Shivoham. I am that Shiva, I am that Shiva, that conscious principle. It's a beautiful stanza, composition of 8 stanzas. So at the age of 12, he could bring out that masterful composition. He lived to be only 32, but he started writing commentaries at the age of 16 on these great uh, texts like the Upanishads, the Brahma Sutras, the Bhagavad Gita. At the age of 16, he started, and he had only one mission in life, was to revive Hindu culture and Hindu way of life. Um, at During his time, uh, India was into, a lot of infighting and decadent way of living. Pe- People were either purely materialistic, and they were called the Charvakas, who did not believe they believed in just, enjoying and living an indulgent life, or people were blindly superstitious. They felt that if they didn't do these rituals, then they would be punished by the Lord if they didn't do their prayers. So, and there was a lot of infighting. He came to revive the Hindu culture and to unite the entire country. So, in this span of 32 years, he traveled across India from south to north, from east to west, 4 times. And this was all done walking on foot. No means of transportation were available at that time. He established 4 matas. Matas, we can say institutions where the culture was preserved after being revived. And he brought about a unification of the country. How did he bring about? Just by this knowledge of Advaita Vedanta, that in essence we are all one. He When he went across the country, he would enter into debates with all those who disagreed with, the philosophy of Advaita Vedanta. If a person was defeated, during those days, it was a practice that if a person was defeated in the debate, they would surrender to the ideas of the one whose ideas were accepted and held as because of the debate, and would propagate those ideas. So this is how he brought people on his side to further the cause of Hinduism through Advaita Vedanta. And at that time, Buddhism had taken over India fully. He was able to bring back and revive the Hindu culture. He was a great leader. He had mastery of the Sanskrit language. Whether he was, composing great devotional songs, whether he was writing commentaries, or whether he was expressing an opinion in prose, it the language just flowed through him, and there was mastery in expression. When he was a student, and there is a tradition of them going from door to door collecting bhiksha, getting food for the day. And they are allowed to go only to 5 homes asking for bhiksha. And if at all these 5 places they get nothing, then they remain hungry for that day. And it was a householder's duty to provide for um, anyone who comes to the door and asks for bhiksha. He went to an old lady and a very poor lady's home and asked for bhiksha. And this lady, she had absolutely nothing but one amla. Amla is a gooseberry in her house. And she brings this amla to Shankaracharya, and she was so sad that she had nothing to offer because of her poverty to this student who had come to her door, and she was failing in her obligation to this young person. And Shankaracharya was so touched by her that he immediately, what flowed out from him was the Kanakadhara Stotram. Kanakadhara means the flow of gold. Kanaka is gold and Dhara is a flow. And he sang to Mother Lakshmi to bless this lady. He wanted nothing for himself because he was going to take only what the lady was going to take. And it is said that at that moment, heavens showered gold on this lady. There are so many compositions that he has written. And this composition, Bhaj Govindam, Shankaracharya was in Varanasi, that is Benares. He was with his 14 students and they were walking the streets of Varanasi. And there they saw an elderly, an extremely old person cramming the rules of grammar. And when Shankaracharya saw this old man cramming the rules of grammar, this Bhaj Govindam just started flowing out of him. And he started the first verse. So Bhaj Govindam has a total of 31 verses. The first verse is chanted like a chorus, and then Shankaracharya composed 12 verses of Bhaj Govindam. First 13 verses were composed by Shankaracharya, and then 14 verses were composed by 14 students who were with him. They were inspired to add to what Shankaracharya had said. And the final 4 verses are a blessing that Shankaracharya gives to all the students. So a student is a Sishya. So who is a student or who is a Sishya? And that is what we all are. We are students of Shankaracharya, who is the Jagat Guru, whose teachings are universal. So a disciple is the word that is used, is one who is taught by a guru, by a teacher. So, of course, we are taught by Jagat Guru. But now come the other qualifications that one must have to be his student. So one, and these are quotes in Sanskrit which we are translating into English for who is a disciple. So one who has improved himself or oneself by becoming introvert and having, reduced or removed extrovertedness. The mind that is going outward is redirected to turn within and become introvert. That is a Shishya. And to do this, one who is able to curb the activities of one's sense organs. Because if the sense organs are, the activities of the sense organs are not curbed, then they will take the mind out and make it extrovert. For example, if I see something beautiful, then, I'm distracted by it and I, want the mind goes out through my eyes that way. Or if I smell something, I smell the baking in my neighbor's house. Oh, she seems to be baking an apple pie. That would be a great dessert to have. And the mind goes out, an apple pie with ice cream or cheddar cheese. So that is how. So one whose senses are also controlled, that is a disciple. So for us, uh, you know, we may already have these qualifications, but if we do not have them, we have to work on them so that we can be true disciples of Jagat Guru and learn Bhaj Govindam well enough so that it will, bring about the change that within us that we expect to come in our lives from the study of this book. With this, we will enter into the first verse. Now, the beauty of the first of this entire Bhaj Govindam is it's very melodious, and it will, after we chant it, it will keep uh, playing in your mind, and in a way it will be committed to your memory, and it will stay with you. So what happens, it's so melodious that just by its playing in your mind and it being committed to your memory, it will remain with you, and it will keep reminding you of how to engage in the world. Beautiful text, simply presented, and it brings the principles of Advaita Vedanta in a very simple way, but the teaching is still very profound. So, if you know how to chant this, please chant it, but then I will only suggest that not everyone have their microphones on, because then it uh, creates a sound distraction. Not all of us will be chanting in harmony. So, but please, if you can chant it, do chant it. So the first one is Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaj Mudhamate, Samprapte Sannihite Kale, Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrim Karane, Bhaj Govindam, Bhaj Govindam, Govindam Bhaj Mudhamate. So the first verse is asking bhaja here. If those of you who have the book by Swami Chinmayananji, they have translated it as seek. So seek Govinda, seek Govinda, seek Govinda, O fool, when the appointed time comes, that is death, the rules of grammar will not help you. So, as I had earlier said, that Jagat Guru was passing through the streets of Varanasi, an elderly old man whose one and a half leg were already in the grave. He was cramming the rules of grammar. And here, Dukrim is what represents grammar. The word kra, the root kra in Sanskrit, it means, he was, the way the man was cramming was kra karane. Kra means to do. The root kra means to do. Kra karane, kra karane. He was probably committing that to memory. So Dukrim karane meant the rules of grammar. Here, one thing to notice is Shankaracharya himself had mastery of the Sanskrit language. And he is telling this man, elderly man, what is he telling him? He's not only is he talking to that elderly man, but he's also, referring to his shishyas, his disciples. Is he asking us not to learn the Sanskrit language? No. He's not asking us to, he's not saying don't learn Sanskrit language. What he is saying is that Sanskrit language, and he is referring to this elderly man, that they will not protect you when your time comes. If you remember the introduction, we had talked about essential versus the non-essential. The non-essential are the means, and essential is the goal of life. What is the goal of life? The goal of life is to know who we are, because only when we know who we are will we be happy and fulfilled. Till then, we will remain unfulfilled. So here he is saying Bhaj Govindam three times to emphasize that please engage intelligently. Know the difference between what is the means and what is the goals. Also, when we engage in the world, how do we engage in the world? We engage with our body, mind, and intellect. So these are the three that he's referring to. Whatever you use, whether you use your body, whether you use your mind, whether you use your intellect, use them to engage correctly in the world. And uh, he's referring to this person or to all who are not engaging meaningfully in the non-essential. He's calling them Modha Mati. Now, this is not to be taken as if, he is looking at us and he's making us feel low, that, uh, oh fool. Modha means fool. But who is a fool? And Modha Mati, whose intellect is deluded, is what he's trying to say. Who is a fool? One who cannot see things clearly as they are. So, just looking at this elderly person, a 20-year-old is able to look at the clarity and say, please, so what should the elderly man be pursuing at this stage? At this stage of life, this man should certainly be pursuing the eternal through in other ways, through worshipping, through meditating, and whatever, singing the glories of the divine. So, all how the means depend upon one's stage of life, one's place in life. He's not telling this to a student. A student will not be told that, do not study the rules of grammar. A student has to master the rules of grammar. But what stage of life you are in and what are you pursuing? So the factors that are to be considered are time, stage of life, one's place in life, and place where one is, one's abilities, and one's intellect, one's intellectual capacity as well. And we have to be aware of what are our capacities, and based on those capacities we have to serve with. Bhaja means singing the glories of the Lord. When can we sing the glories of the Lord? When we know the glories of the Lord. And how can we sing and know the glories of the Lord? Only by serving the Lord. So the word bhaja here means to know, first of all, to serve, and in that way sing the glories of the divine. And Govinda, so when we say divine, it means what is essential in our lives. This essential in our lives comes at every level and aspect of our life, at the level of our body, at the level of our mind, at the level of our intellect, and also at the spiritual level. At the level of our body is, do we get enough sleep? Do we eat healthy? Do we exercise? Do we keep this body, that the essential, so that this body will be available to serve the creation through everything that we do. At the level of the mind, is the mind loving enough? Otherwise, we are constantly seeking love instead of being able to love. At the level of the intellect, what are the values that I have, that one has? And am I able to live those values without compromise? And to live those values without compromise, a strong mind is also essential. So the connection between all three, body, mind, and intellect, is very close. And we are deluded at all these levels. At the level of body, we are deluded that this body will be with us. My body will nothing happens to my body. I can sleep late, I can smoke, I can drink, and I can still act well. That is how we are deluded at the level of our body. And the delusion at the level of mind is, I can control. My mind is strong enough. I can control all the temptations that come to the mind. That is a delusion we have. How, if we observe ourselves, we will see how weak we are. And intellectually, we have values, but we compromise those values and we do not live up to the values. And these values, they come, of course, based upon knowledge. We had already seen that in the introduction. So this is how we are deluded at the level of the body, mind, and intellect. And at the level of, talking of spiritual level also, we are deluded. That is where superstitions come in. We believe in rituals. Now, rituals have a place, but superstition does not have a place. Blind faith does not have a place. So that is a delusion at the spiritual level. And what because of this delusion, what happens is we engage in the non-essential, ignoring the essential. And the essential, as we said, is depending on our maturity. It will grow if we engage at each level in a mature way. The maturity will come to us. So first of all, what are the things that are essential for me at a human level? For a human life, I have to be able to provide for myself. So at the level, if I'm a young person, I have to pursue my education, try to get a trade, a skill, so that I can earn an honest living. If now I have finished my education and I am now earning a living, how do I earn my living? These are all the areas at each stage of life we will be able to see, am I pursuing the essential or am I pursuing the non-essential? And where is it leading me in life? And a beautiful indicator of that is, am I still remaining unhappy and unfulfilled? If I am remaining unhappy and unfulfilled, then I am seeking the non-essential. So that those indicators are very good. And the other name of this book, which I forgot to mention, is Moha Mudgara. Moha Mudgara means the hammer that breaks our delusion. Now, the delusion that we have is we will find fulfillment, we will find happiness in the various objects and situations of life. And this book, as we go through the different stanzas, we will see how we are mistaken, and it very strongly, like a hammer, destroy our delusion and awaken us. So that is why it is given this beautiful name also of Moha Mudgara. So what is our delusion? Our delusion is that, at we have some equations in our mind. If I have wealth, I will be secure. So I plus money equals security. I plus a certain object equals pleasure. I plus an ice cream, pleasure. I plus a certain person in my life is happiness, whether it is my child. So we feel that joy, happiness, fulfillment, security will come from something outside there. Now, all these, whether it is a person, whether it is an object, or whether it is wealth, they have a place. It is not that they don't have a place. I plus wealth is comfort. That I plus objects is comfort, which I can get with wealth. But I plus wealth is not necessarily security. Often we see that wealth makes a person more insecure. One is not sure of why people are around them. It is the wealthy who need to build homes with security guards and keep the dogs and high walls to keep all those people away who will probably intrude and come in to take away what they have. So it brings a sense of insecurity. They're not free to move about easily. The security is within oneself. Wealth is not denied, but recognize its place. That is all. Recognize the place of wealth, recognize the place of objects, recognize the place of relationships, and know that happiness, fulfillment is all within you. And these are all means. The essential will only come through finding who we are in essence, that Govinda. We will take this again next class. Govinda means the Lord. There are several, so the Lord is the infinite one. Can that be an object? If it is an object, any object is only limited. The minute it becomes an object, it is something that can be grasped by the mind. That which can be grasped cannot be infinite. Infinite, we can only become, because that is who we are. And that is the subject. That is my reality. That is who I am. So seek that essential. What is the nature of that essential? The nature of that essential is Sat, Chit, Anand. Sat means it exists. It has existence. Who is the one who is saying? If the one who is saying does not exist, there is no one who can say it. So that exists. And the one who can say it is also conscious. Otherwise, without being conscious. So it isn't as if Sat and Chit are two different aspects of that entity. Sat, existence, is consciousness and is bliss, because we do experience joy. Sorrow that we experience is absence of bliss. It's not opposite of bliss. So our true nature is bliss, is consciousness. And once we come to realize that, we will be fulfilled in life. We will be happy, so we won't be sorrowful. And then when we engage in the world, we will be engaging in the world from joy instead of for joy. What a difference that makes. So this is how he will show us how we are deluded as we go on, and how we can seek the eternal as we go about living our lives. Anybody, any comments, any questions so far? I notice we have a few minutes left for that. Anything to add, take away? Everybody's quiet. No comments? I can't hear you, Neera.
No, what my question is, okay, it's existence, bliss, and
Consciousness.
consciousness. But I mean, when you die, you don't exist anymore.
We do not die. The one who dies is that body, mind, intellect entity. And it is the body that dies. The mind and intellect entity, as long as it is not merged with that divine entity, that Satchidanand, that is the entity that takes birth again. Who does not exist is this Meena. When I say I am Meena, who am I talking about? I am talking about, I will say, Rajubhai's daughter and Lulu Bhabhi's daughter. But that is not who I am. That is my relationship that I'm talking about. Then I'll say, oh, but I am the one who works for Air Canada. I'm talking about my profession. I'm not talking about myself. I'll say, oh, but I have a bachelor's degree in science. That is something that I have learned. It is not who I am. If I start analyzing who I am, I'm either talking about my relationships or I'm talking about some level of mental memories that I have of the past or my aspirations of future. I am other than that. I know I have this body, right? So I can't know that I can't be this body. The knower and the known cannot be the same. Because if knower, as one of the Swamis, Vimlanand would say, she said, if knower and the known can be same, I know a donkey, I become a donkey. She had a very humorous way of explaining. I know I am the body, so I can't be the body. My body is changing. I remain constant in this body. I was fine. Huh?
Only 1 minute left. I will reconnect immediately.
Okay. I am not this body because I know I have a body. I know my mind as well. My mind keeps changing, but I'm aware of the changes of my mind. Also, I'm aware of the changes in my intellect. I know I am sharp today. I know I lack the sharpness today. How do I know? Who is the one who knows that? That knowing principle in me is my real identity. And that identity which is in me is in each and every one of us. And that is where we are all one. These are all my instruments to function out here in the world. Does that get you thinking?
Yes, it gets me thinking, even though when you say, I am aware, I know, but so when you say, I don't want this.
The one who,
yeah. You
that
feel
is,
you don't want it. So who's feeling that?
yes, and that, there is a beautiful chart that Swamiji has of, you have the self-unfoldment, Neera?
Yes, yes.
Okay, so in the self-unfoldment,